My mom knew my brother got my wife pregnant, but she covered for him and tried to pass the baby off as mine. I filed for divorce and showed everything to my father. He handled the rest. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing. Together, thanks so much. Now, let's start the video. Sup, Reddit, still processing this months later. But figured other guys should know what to watch for. I was working hard to set up a future for my family. My younger brother was sleeping with my wife. Mom knew and covered it up and wanted me to raise the baby. I didn't burn their lives down. I let them burn themselves. Here's how it went down. Names changed for obvious reasons. I, 31, male, work as a project manager at my dad's construction company in Phoenix, been married to Elena for 5 years. I make $85,000 plus bonuses. Been working construction since I was 15, earned every promotion through actual work, owned my house outright. No debt except the mortgage I've been aggressively paying down. Bought it for $285,000 3 years before marriage. Worth about $380,000 now. My wife Elena, 29, female, is a nurse making about $70,000. Met her at a sports bar near the hospital when she was finishing nursing school. Decent looking, seemed normal, had her together. Thought I'd found a keeper. Should have paid more attention to how she flirted with the bartender while we were on our first date. My dad, Roberto, 56, male, built his construction company from nothing. Started swinging hammers at 18. Saved every dollar. Took night classes for his contractor's license. Spent his 20s and 30s grinding on residential jobs, slowly building his reputation and client base. By 40, he was landing commercial contracts. Now runs crews doing million-dollar jobs. Real old school guy who believes you earn what you get. Respects hard work. Has zero tolerance for or excuses. Mom, Nora, 54, female. Retired from some pencil-pushing administrative job at the school district. Spends her days shopping with dad's money and gossiping with her church friends. The type who demands to speak to managers and thinks the world revolves around her precious baby boy. Acts like she's some kind of saint but gossips about everyone behind their backs. Then there's Derek, my younger brother, 26, male, mom's golden child. Pretty boy with perfect hair who's never worked a real day in his life. Thinks is God's gift to humanity. Started in dad's office doing basic filing and customer service calls for $55,000. But dad's been slowly giving him more responsibility, hoping he'll grow up. Has this smug attitude like he's doing everyone a favor just by showing up. Here's what you need to understand about the family dynamics. Dad tried for years to make Derek into a man, had him working summer jobs at construction sites starting when he was 16, hoping manual labor would build character. Derek would show up late, complain about the heat, find excuses to hide in the truck with the AC running while everyone else was busting their asses. I remember one specific incident when Derek was 19. Dad had him on a roofing crew in July, Phoenix summer, 115 degrees. Kid lasted 2 hours before claiming he felt dizzy and needed to go home. Meanwhile, the rest of us worked a full 10-hour day. Dad was embarrassed as hell, especially when the crew started making jokes about his soft son. Meanwhile, I was learning every trade, electrical, plumbing, framing, concrete, drywall, started at the bottom cleaning tools and organizing materials, worked my way up through every position. Dad taught me that respect is earned, not given, and nothing comes free in this world. By 20, I was running my own crews on residential projects. Dad promoted me to project manager at 24 because I actually got done and didn't cost him money. I coordinate with subcontractors, deal with city inspectors, handle budgets and timelines. Derek dad finally gave up on manual labor and stuck him in the office doing paperwork and customer service calls. Over the past year, Dad had started giving Derek more responsibility. Initial estimates for small residential jobs, coordinating with suppliers on materials orders, handling some of the easier commercial clients, but this acts like he's some kind of executive, shows up in expensive clothes, drives a leased BMW that costs more than most people's rent. The resentment was always obvious. Every family dinner mom would praise Derek for some meaningless accomplishment like showing up to work on time for a week straight while I had just finished overseeing an $800K strip mall project that came in under budget. Dad noticed but kept quiet to avoid fights. Derek's always been jealous. When I bought my house, he made snide comments about how some people get all the luck. When Dad promoted me to project manager, Derek complained that it was just nepotism, ignoring the fact that I'd been busting my ass for 10 years while he was playing video games. 2 years ago, Derek got himself into some financial trouble. Credit card debt, car payments he couldn't handle, the usual, __. That happens when you live beyond your means. Dad bailed him out with a $15,000 loan that was supposed to be paid back over 2 years. Derek made maybe 3 payments before the excuses started rolling in. First couple years with Elalina were solid. We had our routines. I handled house maintenance and finances. She managed social stuff and cooking, both working hard, building something together, planning for kids. She was a good cook, made these amazing Sunday dinners that reminded me of my grandmother's cooking. Elena worked a standard hospital schedule, 3 12-hour shifts per week, usually Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, gave us predictable time together, and made planning easy. We'd agreed to start trying for a baby after our 3rd anniversary, which was in October 2022. Elena went off birth control that month. We were tracking everything, completely committed to starting a family, normal married couple, __. We even picked out names, Isabella for a girl, Roberto Jr. for a boy after my dad. Around January 2023, Dad landed this massive hospital renovation contract downtown. 6 months, $2 million. Biggest job in company history. Complete gut renovation of a 1980s hospital. Bringing everything up to modern standards. He put me in charge because I'd successfully managed the medical center project in Scottsdale the year before. Hospital work is a different beast entirely. Everything has to be perfect, regulations out the ass, inspectors crawling up your back every single day. I was basically married to that job site. 12-hour days minimum. Weekends dealing with change orders and city inspectors who acted like they were doing brain surgery. Elena understood the pressure initially. She'd bring me dinner at the site sometimes. Knew this project could set us up financially for life. Successful completion meant partnership in the company, significant pay bump, maybe even franchising opportunities in other cities. We talked about using the bonus to pay off the house completely and start looking at investment properties. That's when Elena started hanging with Sophia, this traveling nurse doing a rotation at her hospital. According to Elena, Sophia was single, adventurous, knew all the cool spots in Phoenix I'd never heard of. Suddenly Elena was going out 3 nights a week instead of staying home watching Netflix with me like we'd done for years. I was too buried in concrete schedules and electrical inspections to notice the changes. Looking back, that's exactly when everything started falling apart. But I was so focused on delivering this project that I missed all the warning signs. Elena's schedule became complete chaos around February. She'd always worked those 312s, predictable routine we'd built our entire marriage around. But suddenly she was constantly picking up overtime shifts, covering for sick colleagues, mandatory training sessions that supposedly came out of nowhere. Her base schedule stayed the same, but she was working 5 or 6 days a week instead of 3. Around the same time, Derek started showing up at our house when I wasn't there. I'd come home exhausted at 8 p.m. and Elalina would casually mention that Derek had stopped by to check on her. Brought her coffee from that expensive place downtown. Helped fix some minor thing around the house that I'd been meaning to get to. At first I actually thought it was nice. Derek was finally acting like family instead of a spoiled brat who only cared about himself. Maybe having more responsibility at work was finally maturing him into a decent human being. At the company, Derek was actually stepping up for once. Started dressing more professionally instead of like he was heading to a nightclub. Showed up on time consistently. Even volunteered for weekend work on inventory and filing. Dad mentioned several times that Derek was finally growing up. When the hospital project wrapped up in late March 2023, ahead of schedule and under budget, I expected things to return to normal with Elena. The project had been a massive success, came in $50,000 under budget and earned the company a reputation bonus that Dad was already talking about investing in new equipment. Except normal had been completely redefined while I was working 70-hour weeks. Her schedule was still complete chaos. Those same overtime shifts, mandatory training sessions, coworker emergencies that required her immediate attention. But now that I was home more and could actually pay attention, I started noticing things that didn't add up. Financial irregularities hit me first. Elena had been withdrawing $200 cash every Friday for 2 months straight. When I asked about it, she said girls' nights were getting expensive, and she preferred cash to avoid overspending on the card. Made sense superficially since we'd always been careful about credit card debt, but we'd tracked every expense together for 5 years. This was the first time she'd made regular cash withdrawals without discussing it. Then there was the phone behavior that started driving me crazy. She'd be texting constantly with this secretive smile, completely absorbed in whatever conversation she was having. But the second I entered the room, she'd flip it face down or put it away entirely, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. When I asked who she was talking to, always the same response: work group chat about scheduling and hospital gossip. The physical symptoms started around early April, though I didn't know that's what it was yet. Elena was getting sick every morning like clockwork. I'd hear her in the bathroom at 6 a.m. throwing up, then the shower running for an unusually long time. One morning, I got up to check on her, found her kneeling over the toilet looking miserable. I suggested maybe she was pregnant and watched her face go white with what looked like pure terror. She insisted it was just a stomach bug going around the hospital. Said half the nurses were dealing with the same thing. Made a doctor's appointment, but specifically told me not to come because it wasn't worth me missing work for something minor. Here's the thing. I'd been tracking her cycle on my phone app since October when she went off birth control. We were actively trying to conceive, so I monitored everything carefully: ovulation dates, cycle length, optimal timing for conception. She was 3 weeks late, which had never happened once in our entire relationship. But when I mentioned it, she got defensive and angry in a way that caught me completely off guard. Why are you tracking my period like some creepy stalker? I can handle my own body, Kevin. Stop micromanaging everything in my life. That reaction was way out of proportion to a normal conversation between married couples trying to get pregnant. We'd been discussing cycles and timing for months without any issues. Mom's behavior shifted around the same time, which should have been another red flag. Instead of calling our landline like she had for years, she started calling Elena's cell directly. Long conversations where Elena would leave the room and talk in hushed tones for 30 to 40 minutes at a time. I'd see her pacing around the backyard or locked in our bedroom speaking in whispers. Sometimes I'd catch fragments through the door. Things about checking on that situation or making sure everything is handled properly or he can't find out about this. Since when did my wife and mother have private conversations that couldn't include me? They'd barely tolerated each other for the first 4 years of my marriage. Once I walked in while they were on speakerphone in the kitchen, Mom immediately said, "Oh, Kevin's home, we'll continue this later," and hung up. The tone was exactly like they'd been caught planning some kind of surprise party. Except my birthday wasn't for 6 months. Elena's work stories stopped making sense when I started paying attention. She'd come home claiming to have worked a double shift, but she'd be completely energetic instead of exhausted, or she'd say she'd been in surgery, assisting with a trauma case, but there'd be no blood or antiseptic smell on her scrubs like there usually was after intense procedures. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in mid-April when my truck wouldn't start and I had to catch a ride home with Rodriguez, one of my foremen. Left work early around 2 p.m. instead of my usual 7 p.m. Walked through the front door and heard voices in the living room. Elena, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months, completely relaxed and happy. Derek was sitting on my couch next to my wife, closer than any brother-in-law should be, not quite touching, but in that intimate space couples occupy when they're comfortable with each other. When I appeared in the doorway, they both jumped apart like they'd been caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Elena actually asked, "What are you doing here?" Derek spilled his coffee, jumping up, made some __ excuse about being in the neighborhood and wanting to check on Elena since I'd been working so much lately. The whole interaction felt wrong. Way too much nervous energy for what should have been a normal family visit. Just wanted to make sure she's okay. You know, you've been so busy with work lately. Thought she might need some company. Derek's smile was too forced. Elena kept fidgeting with her hair and wouldn't make eye contact with me. Derek brought me coffee from that place downtown. Wasn't that sweet? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every instinct was screaming that something was very wrong. The change schedules, secret phone calls, pregnancy symptoms, Derek's sudden interest in being a caring brother-in-law, too many anomalies to ignore, started going through interactions from the past few months. Realizing how many things hadn't added up, decided to do some digging the next day. Started with company records since Derek had access to job sites and vehicles through the fleet management system. Checked the GPS logs on his work truck for the past 3 months, cross-referencing locations and timestamps, found dozens of stops at locations that had nothing to do with work assignments. My neighborhood during work hours when I was supposed to be the only family member home. A hotel in Scottsdale, restaurants in parts of town where we had no active projects. Cross-referenced those dates with Ellena's claimed work schedule using the calendar app we shared. Pattern became obvious fast. Every single time Derek's truck was in my area or at one of these suspicious locations. Elena had supposedly picked up an extra shift or was dealing with some workplace emergency. The correlation was too perfect to be coincidence. Next I checked our joint bank account more carefully, going back 4 months instead of just looking at recent transactions. The cash withdrawals weren't random. They happened every Friday like clockwork, always exactly $200. But I also found charges at restaurants and hotels in Scottsdale on days when Elena claimed to be working doubles at the hospital. $180 at Fleming Steakhouse on a Wednesday when she was supposedly working a 12-hour shift. $220 at the Four Seasons for afternoon tea on a Thursday when she claimed to be in mandatory training. $95 at some boutique hotel restaurant for brunch on a Sunday when she said she was covering for a sick colleague. Started keeping a detailed log documenting every discrepancy between her claim schedule and our financial records. The pattern was undeniable once I laid it all out. Called the hospital. Pretending to be trying to reach Elena for a family emergency. Nurse at the front desk said she wasn't scheduled that day and hadn't been in for 3 days. This was a Wednesday when Elena had supposedly worked a 12-hour shift the night before and was planning to work another one that evening. That's when I knew I had to check her email, even though it meant crossing every line of privacy we'd established. Thursday afternoon Elena was at what she claimed was a mandatory safety training session. About new equipment, I stayed home with a fake stomach bug, sat at our home computer with my heart pounding and my hands actually shaking, opened her email account using the password we'd always shared. Team Medina 2019 from our last anniversary trip. Right at the top of her inbox was a conversation thread between Elena and my mother. Subject line: making sure Kevin doesn't find out. My hands started trembling. Just seeing those words made me physically sick. What the hell were they hiding from me? Clicked on the thread and found 3 months of detailed emails discussing Elena's affair with Derek. The early messages from February were tentative. Mom asking if Elena was sure about this, warning her to be careful, suggesting maybe it was just a phase that would pass. But they got bolder and more detailed quickly. My own mother giving step-by-step instructions on how to lie to me, telling Elena exactly when to fake extra shifts, what excuses would sound most believable, offering her house as a meeting place when Dad was playing golf or working late at the office. One email from March made my stomach turn. Roberto always plays golf Thursday afternoons until 6 o'clock, so you have at least 4 hours if you park in the back driveway. Derek can use the side entrance by the garage. I'll make sure the neighbors don't see anything unusual. Another one. Tell Kevin you're working a double Tuesday night. Roberto has that contractors meeting until 10 p.m. so the house will be empty. Derek already told his roommate he's staying overnight at a job site. Then came the pregnancy emails from mid-April. Elena was 8 weeks along, confirmed by her gynecologist, Dr. Martinez. They weren't sure if the baby was mine or Derek's because the timing overlapped with both relationships. My mother's response was the most disgusting part. Told Elena to pass the baby off as mine regardless. That I'd be a better father than Derek anyway. That what he doesn't know won't hurt him. Another email from Mom. Derek isn't ready for the responsibility anyway. Kevin has the house, the stable job, the maturity. Just let him think it's his and everyone wins. Derek gets to keep having fun. You get financial security. And Kevin gets the family he's always wanted. Elena's response. But what if Kevin finds out later? What if the baby looks like Derek? Mom's reply. We'll deal with that if it happens. For now, just focus on making Kevin think everything is normal. Keep having sex with him regularly so the timing makes sense. I sat there for 2 hours reading every single email, getting sicker with each message, screenshot everything, saved copies to a USB drive, printed the most damaging ones. My hands were shaking, but my mind felt strangely clear and focused. These people had been planning to destroy my life for months and they thought they were smart enough to get away with it. Called Dad immediately. Dad, I need to see you at the office right now. Emergency family situation. Can't discuss it over the phone. 20 minutes later I was sitting in his office showing him everything. Told him the whole story. Elena, Derek, the pregnancy, Mom's involvement in orchestrating and covering it all up. Long silence on his end while he processed what I was telling him. When he finally spoke his voice was deadly calm in a way that actually scared me. Son, this is war now. Meet me at Marcus' office in 2 hours. Don't say anything to anyone until we figure this out legally. Dad and I sat in Marcus Chen's law office going through all my evidence like we were preparing for trial. Marcus handles all the company's legal work but also has a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in divorce court. Dad had called ahead and explained the situation, so Marcus had Already cleared his afternoon, Marcus reviewed everything methodically, the emails, bank records, GPS logs, restaurant receipts, hospital scheduling discrepancies. His assessment was immediate and brutal. The house is yours, separate property purchased before marriage. With this level of documentation we can move fast and protect everything you've worked for. His instructions were specific and immediate. Secure all finances today. Protect my assets. Document everything. Don't confront anyone. Until the legal framework was completely in place. First stop was the bank. Moved $95,000 from our joint account to my personal account, leaving exactly $5,000 so it wouldn't look like I was trying to hide assets. Also verified that my premarital investments, about $140,000 in retirement accounts and stocks, were properly documented as separate property that Elena had no claim to. Dad also made some strategic calls while I was at the bank, pulled Derek's access to company and wouldn't need his company credit card, truck, or building access anymore. Derek would find out Monday morning when his key card didn't work and his truck wouldn't start. Blocked all joint credit cards except one with a $2,000 limit so Elena couldn't go on a revenge spending spree. Removed Elena as an authorized user on my personal cards. Every move was calculated to protect my assets while staying within legal boundaries. That evening Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Derek while she was in the shower. I'd been watching for this kind of opportunity. The message said, "Can't wait for tomorrow at Mom's. Dad's working late. So we'll have the place to ourselves again. Bring that thing you bought yesterday." Fresh evidence that the affair was ongoing and escalating. I screenshot the message and sent it to Marcus immediately. That's when I decided it was time to end this charade completely. Called Dad and asked him to set up a family dinner at my house for Saturday night. He understood immediately what I was planning without me having to explain. He called Mom and Derek separately, told them it was mandatory family dinner at Kevin's house. Said I had made a big announcement and wanted the whole family there. Made it sound like good news, maybe a promotion or Elena being pregnant or us buying a bigger house. Told Elena about the dinner Friday night. Watched her immediately tense up when I mentioned Derek would be there. She started asking nervous questions about what kind of announcement, why I was suddenly hosting family dinners when I usually avoided them, whether she should cook something special. Just thought it was time to bring everyone together for some good news. We've got something exciting to share with the family. Her face went pale. What kind of news? You're making me nervous. You'll find out Saturday. Don't worry about cooking. I'll handle everything. Saturday afternoon, April 29th, I set up the dining room like a war room. Placed the divorce papers in a manila envelope at my seat. Printed the most damaging emails in a larger envelope for Dad to read. Also wrote a certified check for $15,000 made out to Dad. The exact amount Mom had convinced him to lend Derek for his financial crisis 2 years ago. Dad deserved his money back before this family imploded completely. Elena spent the entire day nervous and jumpy, asking a dozen times what this announcement was about. I just smiled and told her to be patient. Made my famous try tip with chimori for dinner, the same meal I'd been making for family gatherings for years. Wanted everything to seem normal until I dropped the hammer. Mom arrived first, gave me one of her fake hugs where she doesn't actually touch you. Immediately started asking where Elena was and what this mysterious announcement was about. Dad just nodded at me with this knowing look. Derek showed up 20 minutes late wearing his usual smug expression and a designer shirt that probably cost more than most people make in a day. Gave me one of those condescending brotherly shoulder pads that made me want to punch him right then. So what's the big news, bro? Elena finally pregnant. About time you two got your act together. The way he said it with that knowing smirk and the emphasis on finally told me everything I needed to know. He thought he was winning some kind of game, that he'd outsmarted his older brother and gotten away with it. Elena barely spoke during dinner, just pushed food around her plate and kept glancing nervously between Derek and me. Mom kept trying to make small talk about the weather and her church friends, but you could feel the tension in the room. After dinner, Dad raised his beer with a warm smile. Well, son, what's this big announcement you wanted to share with the family? I reached for the manila envelope, slid it across the table to Elena. Actually, I do have something very important to share with everyone. These are divorce papers. Dead silence. You could hear the air conditioning humming and a neighbor's dog barking in the distance. Elena's face went ghost white and her hands started shaking. What are you talking about, Kevin? Mom started her usual dramatic routine, placing her hand over her heart like she was having chest pains. Kevin, what's gotten into you? You can't just save it, Mom. I cut her off and handed the second envelope to Dad. 3 months of emails between Mom and Elena, planning Elena's affair with Derek. Mom's been covering the whole thing. Dad opened the envelope and started reading, even though he knew but reading her words. His blood was boiling with each page. Derek shot up so fast his chair crashed backward into the wall behind him. You went through her emails. That's illegal. You psycho. You can't use that in court. Really? That's your main concern right now? My voice was dead calm. Not that you've been screwing my wife for 3 months. Elena's hands flew to her mouth. Kevin, please just listen to me. Shut up. Elena, I didn't even look at her. Dad read the part where Mom suggests using your golf schedule to plan their hookups. Mom lunged across the table for the papers, but Dad yanked them away from her reach. Nora, what the __? Is this, Roberto? Let me explain. Explain what? Dad's voice boomed through the house so loud I thought the windows might rattle. How you helped destroy our family. How you turned my own son against his brother. How you've been lying to my face for months. Mom's careful composure cracked completely. Started pointing at Elena. She came to me. She seduced Derek. I was just trying to minimize the damage to the family. Derek actually had the balls to smirk and shrug. Come on, everyone needs to calm down. Kevin, you work 70 hours a week. Elena needed attention and affection. I was there for her when you weren't. That's when I completely lost it. Walked around the table and punched him in the face with everything I had. Felt his nose cartilage crunch under my knuckles. Blood exploded across his designer shirt. He went down hard, took the china cabinet with him. Mom shrieked like someone was murdering her precious baby boy. Dad stood up slowly, all 6 feet 3 inches, 220 pounds of him, towering over everyone in the room. Get him outside now. Derek was on the floor, blood streaming down his face and onto my hardwood. Dad, you can't just, I can do whatever I want. You're fired. You're cut off financially. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me, Roberto. He's your son. Mom was hyperventilating. Kevin's my son, Derek. Prove tonight that blood doesn't mean __. When you betray family. Elena was sobbing hysterically. Kevin, the baby might be yours. Then we'll get a paternity test. Either way, we're done. You're done. This marriage is over. I handed Dad the check. Your money back from Derek's last loan. He won't be paying you back now. Dad looked at the check, then at Derek bleeding on my floor, then at Mom, who was still trying to help Derek sit up. His eyes were cold as winter. Nora, get your coat. We're leaving right now. You and I have some very serious __, to discuss at home. After they left, Elena and I sat in silence, surrounded by the wreckage, broken chair, blood drops on my hardwood floor, divorce papers scattered. She finally asked in a whisper, now you pack whatever you can and get the hell out of my house. This place is mine. You have until tomorrow morning to figure out where you're going. But it won't be here. She nodded and went upstairs to pack. I sat alone at the dining table, feeling strangely peaceful for the first time in months. The divorce moved fast with all my evidence. Elena tried to claim spousal support, but Marcus shot that down immediately given the adultery documentation and her nursing income. Arizona is a no-fault state, but adultery still matters when it comes to asset division and support. She got her personal belongings, her Honda Civic, and nothing else. Paternity test confirmed what I already knew. Baby wasn't mine. Elena moved in with Sophia, that traveling nurse who'd apparently been enabling the whole affair by covering for Elena's fake work shifts. Heard through mutual friends that Sophia got sick of supporting Elena and her pregnancy drama after about 6 weeks. Apparently, Elena was impossible to live with, constantly crying, demanding attention, expecting Sophia to pay for everything. Dad followed through on every single threat. Derek was permanently fired from the company and banned from all job sites. Dad also called around to other contractors in the Phoenix area. Word travels fast in the construction business. Derek became basically unemployable in the only industry he'd ever worked in. Better yet, Dad cut Derek off financially in every possible way. No more BMW lease payments, no more credit cards, no more cash handouts when he got in trouble. For the first time in his entitled life, Derek had to face real consequences with no safety net to catch him. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Derek got arrested for driving on a suspended license with an expired registration. Turns out he'd been driving without insurance for months because he couldn't afford the payments anymore. He spent 2 nights in county jail before Dad refused to bail him out and let him figure it out himself. Maybe jail would teach him what 26 years of coddling couldn't. Elena tried reaching out multiple times through text and email and even showed up at my work once, demanding to talk, wanting to work things through and get past our issues. I blocked her number after she sent a long email claiming the affair was really my fault for working too much and neglecting her emotional needs. Classic cheater logic, where somehow it's always the betrayed person's fault. But the biggest justice came from Dad's response to Mom's betrayal. He didn't just get angry, he got strategic and methodical. Turns out Dad had been suspicious of Mom's spending and attitude for months before all of this came out. And after learning the truth, he had Marcus audit all their finances going back 2 years. They found Mom had been secretly funding Derek's lifestyle to the tune of about $3,000 a month for over a year. Credit cards Dad didn't know about, cash withdrawals from accounts she wasn't supposed to access, and even a second mortgage on their house that she'd somehow managed to get approved. Dad filed for divorce 6 weeks after my dinner party, and at 58, he was completely done enabling Mom's entitled behavior and Derek's failures. Mom lost her, __. When she realized Dad was serious about cutting her off and wasn't going to forgive and forget like he had so many times before. The divorce was absolutely brutal. Dad kept the construction company, the main house, and most of their assets, while Mom had to get a job for the first time in 15 years and ended up working retail at Target, making $12 an hour, dealing with customers who treated her the same way she treated service workers her whole life. Derek moved in with her in a shitty 2-bedroom apartment across town. He tried crawling back to Dad multiple times, always to apologize and ask for his job back, but Dad's response never changed. You made your choice when you betrayed your brother. Live with the consequences like a man for once in your life. Last I heard, Derek was working overnight shifts at Home Depot, making barely above minimum wage, unloading trucks and stocking shelves. Elena gave birth to a daughter and is struggling as a single mom, living in a 1-bedroom apartment and working extra shifts to pay for daycare. A few months ago, Mom and Derek showed up at my house unannounced with the most audacious request I've ever heard in my life. They wanted me to take responsibility for Elena's daughter, give her my last name, pay child support, help with expenses, while also paying Derek's legal fees so he could get back on his feet. Their logic was that family is family, past mistakes should be forgiven for the child's sake. And I was the only one with a stable income to handle the responsibility. The sheer balls it took to make that request still amazes me. Kevin, be the bigger man here. That little girl needs a father figure, and you're the only one who can provide stability. I told them both to get the hell off my property and never come back. Said I wouldn't pay a penny for their mistakes or take any responsibility for the consequences of their choices. They destroyed our family with their lies and betrayal, and I wasn't about to let them destroy my future too. I called the cops and had them both trespassed from my property. The officer who responded said he'd seen this kind of family drama before and told me I was smart to document everything and cut contact completely. It's been 8 months since that dinner party changed everything. And I won't lie, the first few months were rough as hell. It felt like starting over at 30, questioning everything I'd believed about family and loyalty and trust. But cutting out the toxic people made room for better things to grow. Dad and I are closer than we've ever been. He made me a full partner in the business with a 40% ownership stake, and we're looking at expanding into commercial development in Tucson and maybe even Vegas. The company is pulling in more money than ever without Derek's dead weight dragging us down and causing problems with clients. I started dating again about 6 months after the divorce was final and met Sarah at a work conference in Las Vegas. She's an architect who specializes in medical facilities and commercial developments, smart and ambitious, with her own money and her own career goals. And she doesn't need anyone to take care of her, the complete opposite of Elena in every way that matters. I still get updates about Derek and Elena through mutual acquaintances in the construction and medical communities. Derek's apparently had 4 different jobs in 8 months and can't hold anything down because he still thinks he's above manual work and entitled to respect he hasn't earned. Elena posted on social media asking for donations to help with baby expenses and got dragged in the comments by people who knew the whole story. Mom tried reaching out through Dad a few times, wanting to reconcile for the family's sake and asking when this punishment was going to end. Dad shuts her down every time, telling her she made her choice when she helped destroy her son's marriage, and now she gets to live with those consequences just like everyone else. The lesson here isn't complicated, but it took me 30 years and a destroyed marriage to learn it. When people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. Family isn't about blood, It's about loyalty, respect, and having each other's backs when things get tough. Derek and Mom failed that test spectacularly. Dad and I passed it. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well, while the people who screwed you over face the natural consequences of their choices. Derek, Elena, and Mom are all paying the price for their decisions every single day, and that's enough justice for me.